Well, folks, in today's video, we visit the Messina train show located in Messina, New York. This is a train show which comes around about once a year. It's certainly not the biggest out there, but it tends to be one of my favorites just because there's always a decent display of different vendors as well as layouts, and this year's show was certainly no exception. There was a lot of really great stuff to see, and I ended up buying some great things and overall had a wonderful time. So kick back, relax, and I'll take you on a tour and show you all the wonderful things there were to see here. So one of the first things I saw was this vendor selling a whole bunch of different lots, and these were all basically homemade starter sets they had put together and were selling off for $40 a piece. They also had 3 different starter sets from Bachman dating back to about the 80s. They were selling those for $60. And just beside that, there was some American Flyer equipment. Here were a couple of S-scale locomotives going for $350 a piece. They also had some different pieces of rolling stock from American Flyer. I think that some of it might have been S-scale, but there was definitely some O-scale tin-plated equipment. As per most shows, there was certainly no shortage of post-war Lionel. They had tons of different diesels, a pretty good variety of different freight cars, and I'd say about a dozen or so different steam locomotives, all which looked to be in pretty good condition. Now, as for their selection of HO scale locomotives, it seemed to be pretty good. One thing that caught my eye was this Hershey's engine over here. They also had tons of Athearn Blue Box and Proto 2000 engines for sale, which are both pretty decent brands. There's a little bit of Atlas in there as well. Over here, they actually had a couple of Oak scale Hershey's train sets, which is certainly not something I was expecting to see, as well as this Mahano / IHC GG1, which seemed to be in pretty good shape. They had a bit of Stewart equipment over here, and this Bachman American locomotive, which kind of caught my eye. In terms of HO scale rolling stock, they had a set of 4 New York Central passenger cars, as well as a whole bunch of Athearn ready-to-roll freight cars. They also seem to be carrying some various buildings, the majority of which were HO scale, but there definitely were a few N scale pieces mixed in there. And then finally, they had this giant display of different N scale cars. Many of these were used, but others appeared to be new in the box. The next vendor had a whole bunch of locomotives for sale, and these were mostly older engines from Athearn, Tyco, and Model Power, all the brands which really ruled the 70s and 80s in my opinion. They also had some brass steam locomotives, including a Richard Dreyfuss Hudson for $250. They had some various pieces of rolling stock being sold out of the box at a discount. And then just beside that, there was another vendor carrying pretty much the same kind of stuff, a couple fancier brass engines, but still some Lifelike and Rivarossi mixed in there. One thing I liked about this vendor, though, was they actually had their own layout associated with the store, which I think was kind of a nice touch. The next table had some more HO scale locomotives and rolling stock. Everything here was being sold without its box. Just across from them, there was a club layout, which I thought was kind of interesting because it was actually using DC power. I don't find you see a lot of displays which aren't being run by DCC, so I thought that was kind of unique. Boy, what's your favorite scene here?
I think it's the
What part of this is your favorite?
the animals. Probably the horse.
The horses? She's a horse girl. Out of all the displays at this train show, one in particular stood out, and it was an N-scale module featuring an actual working model of a tornado. I've never really seen anything quite like this before, and I actually ended up meeting the gentleman who created it, and he pointed out a whole bunch of subtle details he added while creating it, so I asked if he'd be willing to do a bit of an interview to describe them. At a train show here, we've got this really unique module, which has been set up by this gentleman right here, Lorenzo. And he's going to explain kind of some of the thought process that went into this. So what's the idea here?
Well, I saw the movie Twister, and I made this modular from the movie. And if you look here, I took a metal tube, and then I took little wires, and I made it smaller to bigger. Then I connected them, and I put that snow thing down, and then I put little figures in there. If you remember the movie Twister, there's the cow, there's the sheep, and then from the Wizard of Oz, I put a little lady on a scooter, and she's the Wicked Witch of the East, and so she wouldn't melt. She's got a raincoat. and then I just put a motor under the bottom, and I wired it up to a power pack, and then when I turn it on, she spins.
It's got to be one of the most unique modules I've seen. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, and high quote.
I just think that that was probably one of the coolest displays I've ever seen at a train show. It was also really nice getting to meet Lorenzo. He actually turned out to be a subscriber of the channel, and he was a really nice guy, so it was very kind of him to share that here. Anyways, this is about it for the tour. I did see just a few more things. There was this lady selling a whole bunch of N-scale locomotives, including a big boy, which I thought was pretty sharp. Almost all the stuff was a little bit out of my price range for N-scale, but it was still nice. Now let's head back home and I'll show you all the things I decided to buy here. Well, I'm now obviously back home here in Canada. Unfortunately, this year's show didn't have quite as many vendors as usual. I don't really know why, but that's just kind of how it is. Some years you have tons of vendors, others not so many. However, I still managed to buy 3 things, which I'm very happy with, so I'm going to show them all to you, and then we're actually going to test them out here on my layout. I'll start off with the things which maybe are not quite as exciting, and we'll kind of work our way up. Starting with this 440 American-type steam locomotive. And this is a type of engine that I've really wanted to add to the collection for a while. I already have another one, which unfortunately doesn't run so well. I've tried to fix it a couple times and it just hasn't been the best. But this one is brand new, so hopefully it will run well. And I really like the paint scheme. The other one I have is red, this one's blue. It's got the Baltimore and Ohio scheme, and they wanted 85 bucks for it. I've seen these things retail for 130, so in my opinion, that's not too bad a price. It is a tender-driven locomotive, so I really don't know how it's going to perform, but we'll test it out later and we'll see what it's all about. So that was my first purchase. My second purchase was a Mantua locomotive, and inside here is a 2662 logging locomotive, and we'll get this all opened up here so you can see it. This thing is basically in mint condition right here. We've got the warranty and the certificate of authentication. And just check this thing out. Like, what a cool locomotive. I definitely don't have anything quite like this in the collection. It just seemed like something that was really unique. And apparently it's never been run before. It's new old stock. So they wanted 125 for that, which, considering it's brand new from the 90s, you know, I thought it was an okay deal, so I decided to buy that as well. I'm really curious to see how this thing is going to run. It does look like a very well-built locomotive, so we'll have to test it out later and see how it performs. And then finally, for all the N-scale fans out there, I ended up getting this Kado kind of train set. Now, this isn't a starter set. It doesn't come with track or controller. It just comes with the train. But I'm quite a big fan of Kato products, especially in N-scale. I find they make pretty good stuff, and they wanted $125 for this, which in my opinion didn't seem like too bad a deal considering it was the whole train. So I just decided to pick that up and we'll be able to test it out. I have a lot of older N-scale engines, and you know, I always enjoy repairing things, but it's nice to have a few really reliable engines that you can just always count on, and I find these Katos are usually the deal for that. So anyways, let's get all this stuff out of the box and let's test it out on both my HO and my N-scale layout. So we'll start off with the Bachman here. Not too bad. And now we'll see how well it runs. Oh yeah. That's weird, it's getting power, but it's actually gotten stuck. Judging by the current draw, I don't think that the motor is jammed. I think it's just lost power. Well, it seems to be running okay. I think that it could probably use a bit of a cleaning, which for an engine which is right out of the box is not the most impressive thing, but I suspect this thing might have been sitting for a while, so it's not entirely surprising that it's not running perfectly, but whatever, at least it runs. Next up, we've got the Mantua locomotive. I find it kind of hilarious. This might be the only locomotive I've seen which actually has instructions on how to remove it from the packaging properly. I'm not going to do that, but anyways, here it is. Detail looks pretty good. I mean, it is a bit of an older locomotive. You can see it's got the horn hook couplers, but even from the box, you can see it's got a proper can motor and flywheel, so this is certainly still a pretty modern engine by many standards. So anyways, let's get this thing set up on the track and see how it runs. I hope it starts, because if this thing has been sitting for, I don't know, 25 plus years, it might have jammed up, but let's check it out. I'm only just noticing that one of the wheels looks different from the others. I really hope this is not some kind of zinc pest. I'd be surprised on an engine which is only like 25, but I don't know, that just seems a little strange to me. Okay, let's give it some power here. Absolutely nothing. That's not so good. Oh boy. Ooh. Let's see if it powers through. Yeah, it doesn't really seem to be having it. I mean, it's starting to pick up the pace and the electrical system is getting better. But that's one thing about buying a really old locomotive that's never been run. The cosmetics will be perfect, but that doesn't mean mechanically it will always be good. I mean, these things are meant to be run, and when they're not, things can start to jam up, which unfortunately seems to have happened with this locomotive, so it looks like I'm going to have to service it. But at least cosmetically, it's pristine. And now we'll see if this set is any good. So here it all is. It looks like Kado actually kind of sold themselves short, because they only displayed the locomotive in 3 cars, and turns out you actually get 4 in total. So that's kind of a nice surprise. Anyways, I guess we'll begin by taking out the caboose here. And overall doesn't look too bad. Got a covered hopper. There's the tank car. And finally, here's the locomotive. The detail looks not too bad on this thing. Let's see how it runs now. There we go. Oh yeah, this thing runs great. I think given the speed this thing is going, there might be a little bit too much voltage being given out from that controller, so we'll just crank it down a little bit, but yeah, I've got to say it runs really well. You know, I don't run a whole lot of stuff on this track. I kind of need to redo it, so I'm impressed to see how smooth it is. And headlight's nice and bright. Overall, it doesn't seem like too bad a set. Well, I've now been running this thing for about 5 minutes straight, and it's been just going around like a top. It hasn't had any issues whatsoever, which is really what you would expect for a brand new locomotive. I mean, to be fair, unlike the other two, I don't think that this one's been sitting for like 15 years, which probably helps it quite a bit. But still, it's nice buying something brand new and just having it work. And either way, I'm just happy to have a whole brand new reliable train to add to the N-scale collection. Now I just need to bring the layout up to that level. Well, folks, I think that that's going to be about it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. I certainly enjoyed getting to once again visit the Messina Train Show. It's always a good time there, and I actually ended up meeting about 5 different subscribers, which is just really cool. It's so unique getting to actually meet some of you out there who watch these videos in person and kind of connect some faces to names I sometimes see in the comments, like Lorenzo. So yeah, if you're one of those people, thank you so much for coming up and saying hi. I really appreciate it. There were also a couple other content creators who were there, and they did their own videos of the show, so I'll go through and look for all those and try to put them all in the description. So if you want to see a bit of a different perspective of the show, they'll be there. Until then, I just want to thank you all so much for watching.
Yeah.